National Treasury has hit back at the South African National Defence Force, saying it has allocated an additional 10 billion rand to the SANDF's 57.2 billion rand budget for the 2025-2026 financial year. This response follows sharp criticism from Admiral Monde, Lobese, who last week accused the Treasury of sabotaging the SANDF's operational capacity as a result of inadequate funding. However, Treasury today firmly rejecting these claims, insisting that the Defence Force must first address its own inefficiencies before demanding further resources. I'm joined now by the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Defence and Military Veterans Dakota Legoete to discuss this matter further. Very good afternoon to you, Mr. Legoete. Thanks very much for your time. There has been, certainly in the past week, this toing and froing between Admiral Lobese and Treasury, with Treasury today releasing a very short and terse statement. They are saying they won't be commenting further on this matter. What, in terms of your understanding, lies at the heart of this tiff?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mvogo, and thank you very much also to the viewers at home. Look, the budget of the defense indeed has been a matter of national concern. I think for both Treasury and all of us needs to understand that defense has to do with national security. And national security supersedes all other securities. For instance, you can do with a crisis of an energy security in the form of load shedding, where you can recommission Medupi or Kusile. In our case, as national security, which is a defense and security of the nation, anything that can lead to insurgents, insurrection, uprisings, even a coup d'etat, those are things that can disrupt the normal living of a society, including future generation. Now, it's not left to chance. And that's why it's going to be important that all of us, both the Treasury and the National Defence Force, and all relevant departments needs to put our heads together to understand that anything that has to do with the underfunding of the National Defence Force has to do with national security, and it can pose a national security threat if it's not taken serious. So we would not want to embark on a public space because it also compromises our national security position, but rather hope that even if we may have not achieved everything in the current financial year, we hope that going forward, there will be enough resources to fund our national security, because National Defence Force is not only on its own, it has to do with national security. The mandate is derived from Section 200, subsection 2 of the Constitution, which mandates the National Defence Force to defend the Republic, its people, its territorial integrity, its sovereignty, the Constitution, and all international laws. And that you cannot do with an Okapi knife, because we are defending billions and trillions of assets, our sea, our airwaves, our territorial integrity, our lands, our towns, our provinces, our villages, our townships, and every aspect that has to do, or property that belongs to South Africa and South Africans, needs to be protected by the National Defence Force. So it's not something that we do with very few money. It needs serious budget.
But what gives you that hope that perhaps not in this financial year, but sometime in the future, all these important stakeholders and players will be able to find one another? What gives you that hope?
The hope we get it from the report we received from our Minister, Honorable Ange Motshekga, and her engagement with our counterpart, Honorable Godongwane, as well as the President, that there is an intention from the side of the executive as the cabinet to move the allocation to the GDP of the National Defence Force from the current 1.7% to 1.5% of the allocation towards the GDP, because the current international trends it stands at 2%. But as a result of the outcomes of what happened in Tel Aviv and Tehran, Iran and Israel currently, other nations have increased to 3% of the GDP, others respectively to 5% as part of preparation. Because literature will tell you, in times of peace, prepare for war, and in times of war, prepare for peace. And as it is the case now, there is relative peace, but it does not suggest that as a nation we do not have enemies. We do not have those who are willing to attack and take over our country. So it's something that we cannot take light, because security and national security is something that we must be combat ready and on alert 24/7, 365 days to ensure that South Africans, taxpayers, voters, including our children and their children's children, can live peacefully with stability in a country side by side. So we have that particular hope, because hope is the only instrument that has kept our nation resilient in difficult times or in trying times.
Is that what you communicated to the president? Was apparently on the 17th of July, you addressed a letter to the president, to which the president's parliamentary councillor responded, and we're talking about Dr. Gornov. What exactly was contained in the letter you sent to the president? What was the issue you were raising, and what would you have rather heard as a response?
Look, what we communicated to the president was the concern raised by the portfolio committee in terms of funding allocation to the National Defence Force, that it needs to be improved to be on par with international standards. And indeed, we did receive the report, the response from the presidency responding to the portfolio committee, that the matter is receiving attention, that they've referred the matter to the Minister of Finance and the National Treasury. And in due course, I'm sure there will be a team amongst members of the executive between our Minister, Honorable Mutseka, Honorable Kondongwani, and the Office of the President in considering the allocation, because we need to protect our seas, we need to protect our skies, we need to protect our borders, we need to protect every South African, and assets belong to South Africans. And that does not come cheap, and we cannot do it with an outdated machinery. We need to update our machinery, modernize our war equipment or prime mission equipment, so that in case of any attack, we are ready to defend South Africans. Because you can see with the recent wars we've seen, we no longer use men and women on the ground. We use electronic warfare, we use drones, we use other things that we have seen being used, including hypersonic missiles. All those things do not come cheap. And as a country, we need to put funds aside to ensure that we can also defend our nation and our people in case of any attack. And we would want to commend our Minister, Honorable Mutseka, as well as the department, for having cut the coat according to the size of the cloth, whilst we are working on ensuring that we increase our allocation budget of the defense to the GDP allocation. Because the Defense Force is the only budget, even globally, that is measured on the standard of the GDP, based on the fact that national security is a national priority for any nation, and it's a pride.
Are you happy with the president's response, and you don't think he's kicking the can down the road?
No, we are happy, because at the end of the day, both me and himself, we have taken an oath of office to defend the Republic and its people. And anything contrary to that, me and any other elected member, including the president, we can be charged for treason in case we make the nation vulnerable. So it's not an option in our case. We have to do it. We have to ensure that we work towards synchronizing our budget to our GDP and ensure that we have proper prime mission equipment to defend the nation in case of any attack, including dealing with porous borders, dealing with the criminal element that is undermining the sovereignty of a duly elected government by ensuring that people live in fear and in terror, as is the case now, with more than 29,000 people, according to stats, dying in the hands of the criminal element. That cannot continue. going on, and we can only combat it when we have necessary funding, when we have necessary allocation and necessary resources, because defense and security, peace and stability, it's a basic ingredient for economic growth, for job creation, for ensuring proper education, proper healthcare, and ensuring that there's integrity within our territory, that criminal elements and other people who are doing as they wish and please, they can be combated and stopped from doing anarchy, because the criminal element is too much in our country and it has reached proportions of terrorism, and you cannot deal with it by mimicking it. You need to be hard on it, and the only way to be hard on it is to fund your defense and security to create a permanent peace and stability for society, for our people.
Dakota Legoete, let me thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.